Good afternoon. It's Joyful Christian Hermit. Well, some very, very good comments, bringing up lots of ideas and points to be made. Trying to give you a little different view today. I can't hold this phone in my left hand. I just texted some to my niece and asked her to tell my sister, her mother, who lives next door to her, that, why I cannot text anymore. They're welcome to call. They won't, I'm sure. That's okay. Because then I could put the phone down and just speakerphone it. But my sister, I haven't heard her voice in years. She's got depression and anxiety disorder, and I think just things about me have bothered her over the years, including Catholicism, but she keeps writing how much she loves me, which is so wonderful, and she prays for me, and I'm grateful for that. Not much information, and my eldest sister too, I don't know what's going on there, but I think they too communicate a lot, because she sent a three-way message of things I had no idea what was going on with their health and things. So I'm sort of out of the loop, and that's okay, but they're welcome to call. And I've thought about calling too, but it just takes energy. And they may be at the same point with me, that it's maybe too much energy for them to talk with me, because I'm different than I perceive things differently. I understood our mother, don't have rancor, and I did finally come down on them about that. Getting these messages. Our mother's been passed for it'll be 21 years this fall, and no need to keep harping. She had a fault, and it was a bad one. It was hard, but she had all these other wonderful points, and we've got to just try to do that, and I need to do that in my own life. I've been thinking back, there were lots of fun times with my husband too. Lots of fun times. He was quite charming, and when he was on with me and wooing me and enjoying his double lives or multiple lives, he was happy. I realized when I started seeing, it was about the last year or so, or I started doing things, because he would mentally, emotionally just keep putting me down so much, and I didn't realize, but then I started to achieve needing things subconsciously, but I did, like working on my doctorate, or things that somebody would say, you're good, you're okay, and loved being a mother and doing things with the children, and their birthday parties, and helping them with their school projects, and so proud of them, and going to their activities. I was really into being a mother, and being a wife, and doing things for his staff, and trying to please. But I realized later I was grinding myself down to exhaustion, trying to do it all to please someone who had really just been playing his disorder with me, living out his disorder. And when I started putting my foot down on, I saw through a lot of it, but I didn't confront. You don't do that with socio-psychopathic and narcissistic people. They can get very violent. But when he realized that his game wasn't as much fun, especially once I was injured, it wasn't as much fun or intriguing for him to cheat on a maimed person somehow, or that someone who wasn't buying it. I wasn't I stopped being part of his cycle, part of his multiple lives, part of his game. and just, you know, like whatever. His stories, his lies. I didn't say I didn't believe them, but I didn't act on them. I didn't respond, really. I didn't believe. Not overtly, but I just felt differently about it. And was engaged doing other things with him, but at a different level. What I was doing for myself was overcoming all the effort he was making in beating me down. So it wasn't fun for him anymore to pull the ruse on me, to play his game, which psycho and sociopaths play. They have multiple lives, and womanizing the sociopaths in particular, and all the lies. If the other person isn't captivated, and as he told me once, he wanted a wife who would worship him. And I said, well, I love you very much as a husband, but I worship God, and I always will. And that wasn't the right answer, of course. I'm supposed to worship him. So I was getting a little more inspired by the Holy Spirit with answers. Like when he said he was going to spend the rest of his life destroying me, doing whatever he had to do to destroy me. I said, well, you may do all that, but you will never get my soul. So, but there were many, many good times too. I really was very happy being married. And also, I didn't realize till later, it did normalize me to other people. Being married gives you a ticket to be in the normal world, accepted by people as normal. Since you're married, you're a couple, you're obviously you're okay. You're not spiritual, you're not a mystic, you're a regular person, I guess. Well, some of the comments, they're just very good. One has to do with myofascial, sort of a massage or treatment. Mercy, honey, I'm having trouble just petting you all the time, okay? I've got to rest my arm, okay? I got to rest my arm from petting you so much, okay? I love you, but it's just... So, pain update. I woke up for the first time without horrific arm pain and numbness for, I don't know, maybe it's been a couple months, 6 weeks, I don't know how long this has been going on. But my right arm was numb and hand was numb, but it wasn't burning, it wasn't on fire, it was just numb. But I'll take that over being on fire. And I started thinking about Joan of Arc and how she burned, and considered the nerve pain that she had while she was being burned by fire, her body, and how young she was, and her, she would have loved to have gotten married and have children. And I thought, here she is in heaven, hopefully seeing my life. I hope it helps her feel a little better, because I have wondered, why did God send me back to rear my children, knowing how my children were not going to appreciate and likely wish that they'd been reared by their dad with money, but because they totally forget how they didn't even want to visit him. He wasn't good with them. So, but as adults, it's all changed. So I don't know, but I hope Joan of Arc, sees my life and realizes that being married and having children can have its downsides, its upsets. We can't, oh, Mercy, please, don't, honey, don't, sit down, honey, sit down, I'll pet you with my right arm. Here, lay down. I know Mercy's got a tummy ache today. She's got a tummy ache, so needs extra TLC. But back to this myofascial release, one of the viewers mentioned that can really help with pain. And that's what the physical therapist does twice a week. He's one of two with a special credential of working with spines in physical therapy in the state I'm in. And he's excellent. I think he's about 50 or 51, and he's co-owner of this physical therapy group. They have 4 different sites. It's a big going concern. He's a wonderful person, a wonderful Christian, and he was getting frustrated yesterday. He never gets outwardly, but he said, he says, I just tried everything. I don't know what else to do. Because he knows I'm in terrible pain. He says, I've tried everything. Of course, it includes working on the muscles and pressure points. And he also has lately now been doing chiropractic moves to try to crack ribs. He was concerned that the ribs were being bound, which may be, but he got three cracks out of them, so they're not stuck. But the fascia tissue can bind muscles and other tissue, and if you get it released, then it helps things just loosen up. So he's been working on my neck for quite a while, trying to get that loosened up, keep the fascia from binding. So it's a very important thing to do. Ask someone to do it or get physical therapy for it if you live alone. And I was so grateful that someone mentioned that, to have myofascial release done to the spine and the neck and the rib cage, even, and your shoulder blades and all. So somebody's been working on it. This man has been working on it twice a week, and it's important. But it has loosened. But it was the steroids that really have helped with the pain. The steroid injections I had yesterday had about 12 or 13 of them, 7 or at least 7, maybe 8 on the left side, and 4 or 5 in the right side. And but I was up trying to get a cooking project done, and get things made so that I can eat at work and not have to every meal try to come up with something. I just grange eat then off of what I've made. But just standing, I'm back here on ice now. I won't stay on it too long, but the pain was becoming unbearable in the thoracic spine. But I woke up this morning without the numbness, without the burning, but in the right arm was all numb, but I felt my neck like gangbusters. See, your mind goes to the area of the worst pain. So I've been focusing on my arm burning and the numbness, the hands, and the mid-back. My body's like a whack-a-mole. So get that toned down with all this steroid in me, which I didn't get to sleep until 2 because I was so wired from it. Well, and also from just feeling so much better all of a sudden with all that steroid, getting the inflammation down and helping with the pain. So I realized that my neck is awful, but I was so conscious of the arm and thoracic spine pain, I didn't notice it. So you just gotta laugh, and I did a different note to Dr. H sending these super patches back. He sent me pain or I don't know what they're called, victory or wellness or something. And I wrote a better note, reminding him that what I always heralded about him and was drawn to him and was helped so by him was for all of the emotional and mental suffering and spiritual suffering. I said, to me, that is far worse than any physical suffering. And I said, you have a gift in healing, helping people heal from their physical, mental, i.e. psychological suffering, or psychology, and spiritual. I said, you're so spiritual, and that's what's eternal. Rather, I said, you sort of got off your gift, getting into wanting to heal people physically, which is commendable. But honestly, I said, there are things in suffering that aren't so terrible. You know, we learn a lot in suffering. And some sufferings, barring a miracle from God, the super patch, I said, unfortunately, the research I did was very inconclusive because only the company itself has done studies. I said, until other medical and scientific research institutes do studies, reputable ones do studies on it, and at that, the people's comments were iffy. Many calling, I didn't say this, but many call it a fraud, a scam. But I said, ultimately, all the side effects, I'm just not willing to risk them. And I would never, I didn't tell them this either, but I would never pay for it. So I don't want to risk my body even trying them. And I'm just saying, I said, you know, all your life and your, you know, what you are known for, your gift. I said, now it's veered off into the physical healing with something like this super patch or supplements. And I didn't remind him of this, but another person had brought up something that reminded me of, it was another viewer had mentioned, and it's true, that we can have a peak emotional or spiritual experience. And it's as if the pain is gone. Of course, it's very temporary. And the experience has to be sort of unexpected. You can't anticipate it. But some peak miraculous type event or extremely beautiful emotional reaction, adrenaline surge, will take the pain away. Well, even if you've been injured, but you're in shock, maybe shock that you lived even, you don't feel the pain until later when the adrenaline leaves or simmers back down. Then, wow, you know, gangbusters pain. And sort of like, you know, getting that injections, just anything that's going to help. I was euphoric yesterday afternoon just to have someone say, yes, I'm going to help you right now. You need help, you know, as opposed to the surgeon. Well, sorry, there's nothing I can do. Well, there was, but the next surgery's off the table unless I become life-threatening. And I don't want the surgery. I mean, because it'll really hinder me if I live through it. So, you know, we'll do the steroid injections as long as they work. I know they're not good. They'll eventually not. But even that was like a euphoric, and I just felt even probably better than what I actually felt. If you know what I mean. It's just, you know, the mind was just so thrilled. And the steroids do give an effect, you know, boom, all of a sudden, and that much in me, in the back that had been so on fire and hurting and killing me. So it just helped. Even to have the pain of the injections felt good to me. He says, oh, you know, it's going to be a pinch, you're going to feel, oh, it just felt good to have some other type of pain on it. You know? That's why I had these urges to stab my arm up and down with a knife, because I knew it'd be a kind of relief at first to have a different pain, just getting rid of the burn. So the mind sort of instinctively knows but it would be so temporary. And this person also mentioned, that it said that we only use about 10% of our brain. And that's so true. And when I was doing my doctorate in clinical psychology, I already had my doctoral dissertation already mapped out, my thesis, and set up, what I was going to do. I was going to study management of pain through spirituality, through spiritual means, which is how I'm living my life, actually. I'm my own case study. And I'm glad that I'm glad both viewers left these comments, because it opened up thoughts. And this was a reminder that I haven't really been focusing with that intention also of seeing what kind of good I could do for others who suffer physical pain, or any kind of pain really, but through God, how to manage the pain and live with high levels of pain, being still productive, positive-minded. And now I realize, it has to start with love of God. Loving God, because God is the healer. God's the one who created our brains. God is in our soul, and that consists of the will and the intellect. So it all comes down to God and our spiritual lives as to the ability to handle pain in life. And then the understanding of suffering and love being intertwined, and not to view suffering as a negative. Sincerely understand it as a positive, as a gift, because it accentuates love. And love then can accentuate or beget suffering. They go together. They're cyclical. One begets the other, and then the other. And we learn so much from suffering. If we did not have suffering, the bliss or the love would not have a contrast to it. So we wouldn't recognize it. It would feel strange probably to us in our human form. And it's how we can long for God more. Why I was calling out to God so much and pondering, trying to find breakthrough to be able to cope and to endure, without doing myself in, to get rid of it. And it was through that's what brought me to love, to learn love and God's kind of love. That's how I'm going to know God, understand God, and be with God, is through love. And that's how God will teach me how to love in His way. And I will be able then to love other people, really love other people, not just happen chance or tell myself that I do, because we're supposed to, And we can forgive other people, but it doesn't mean that we forget, and we can still have anger, and anger opposes love. So my forgiveness, say if my ex-husband's incomplete, or my resentment indicates there's still an issue, a resentment then even of the lawyers, as I mentioned, who took advantage and just wanted to be done with it. They already had the amount of money they were going to make. If they fought on, they weren't going to make that much more, just their hourly, which was a lot, but it wasn't like the big down payment you make, their retainer and stuff. That they had that already. So it was pointless to them to fight for me. They had other cases they could do that didn't have an obnoxious man that I was married to deal with. So they couldn't stand them. So they just didn't fight for me in ways that affected my finances from then on. And now, of course, in a bigger way, as I didn't know what I had. I knew it was permanent, but I didn't know it would progress. And how can you know the whole ramifications? I was young and naive and thought I could still make money some other ways, and maybe I could have. I thought of that, that I think, oh, my life's been so awful. I got into that the other day. I hadn't done it in so long. My life was miserable. Well, I could have really focused on writing as a career. I could have. I didn't. I'm always drawn into hands-on things too, like gardening, or I really realized when I got into that fixer-upper, not knowing, and had to work myself out of it, took 5.5 years, that I really enjoyed doing manual labor, construction things, carpentry work. I love working with wood, touching it, and I love painting things. And I discovered that all that movement really helped my body, stretching and all, and it took my mind off the pain. Whereas laying in bed, typing all day, ultimately probably would have brought on more of my arachnoiditis suffering than all of the moving my body around. At least the neurosurgeon said a couple of years ago, keep moving, keep doing that. That's what's helping you. He was amazed at how well I was doing. And I still am amazingly doing well. But part of the issue is the arachnoiditis, being neurological, is ramping up. It just does that. You can only waylay it so long. It's still going to affect your neurological system. So it just still seems imperative that I keep pushing. But this viewer reminded me, and also Dr. H, how he is really threatening his reputation, I think, by getting off into this scam stuff. And he sells this stuff. Even the model is questionable. It's under investigation, this company, because they make outrageous claims of how much people will earn. It's a certain model of selling that you pay into the company, and are supposed to sell these super patches to people, and with promises of how much money you're going to get back, and they don't. And then they don't win. If you sue them, you don't win because you sign a contract. It's very tricky. It's really a scammy kind of a deal. And so that is not good. But he's so sincere and so wanting to help people who suffer. I think he's, like me a lot, not satisfied with what he was doing that was good, his psychology, and probably getting tired of people coming with their divorce problems or their childhood issues and all. Wanted to have some other kind of healing he could do, physical, because he cares about people. But that's not his gift. It's not his lane. It's not what God chose for him. And with me, I'd sort of forgotten that, I was going to try to see if I could use more of the brain. Not the brain, not really the brain, the soul. It's the soul. The intellect and the will and the contact with God to overcome the effects of physical pain on the soul, on all levels, the outer emotions and sensations, outer senses, the inner senses, the emotions, the memory, the images. Like I was having dark images the other day, remembering negatives, and visual images of my ex-husband when he'd be angry and yelling and scary. Just very negative I was being. And then also of understanding and into the will and the intellect to overcome through what now I know is love of God, learning to love, and starting with the love of God. So I'm reminded to get back on that path, stay on that goal, and be the case study of it. And we all can. We can all be our own case studies and strive in helping by enhancing love, our love, and by keeping suffering not an evil, not a bad thing, the physical suffering. So here I say these things now. You'll see, it was rugged this morning with my neck. So it's a challenge, isn't it? So we'll see. Let me get to this. Oh dear, what happened here? Here's a saint, Marmion. I want to read this sermon for you because it's very good. It's actually a prayer, and it's from his book on. I'll find it here. Just a minute here. Anyway, I'm grateful for the comments. They really opened up for me a path forward and reminded me of the holy narrow pathway, which is love of God. That's the root. That's the portal to the holy narrow pathway. The mystic portal, the doorway to enter the holy narrow pathway, is learning love of God. And from there, God will take over with pointing out to us things, like I've had things pointed out to me through you guys. He's had you guys point out things to me and remind me of things. And even Dr. H remind me through these super patches he's selling. And, well, he gave me those. He did, but he would want me to buy them, if they worked. But then also, the love of God. That's the opening to learn God's love. So this prayer of the monk, it came from Christ, his book, Christ the Ideal of the Monk. He has 3 books. Blessed Columba Marmion. He born in 1858 in Ireland and died in 1923 in France. And I think he went on over to Belgium. Yes, he was. He ended up being an abbot. Dom Marmion. And I've got his series of books. He has one on Christ, the life of the soul, one Christ, the life of the priest, and one Christ, the life of the monk. Here's this. I'll read this. Eternal life is to know him. It is said that in heaven we shall be like to God, because we shall see him as he is. Immediately the blessed soul sees God. It is identified with him in the intellect by truth, and in the will by love. In the measure possible, the soul is not equal, evidently, but like to God. The beatific vision works this transformation, rendering the soul like to God to such a degree that it is united to him in unity. Now, during this life, what is the prelude to the vision that the elect enjoy? Prayer through faith. The soul, by contemplating God through faith in prayer, sees God's perfections in all truth. We surrender ourselves to this truth, and thus beholding in God the sovereign and unique good, our will is united to this divine will God's divine will, the fount of all beatitude for the soul. And the more powerful this adherence of our soul to God, the more the soul is united to God, the more we love God, the more we adhere to God, the more we will be united to God. This is why prayer in faith is so precious for the soul. See, so it's bringing out a key point of loving God is prayer, communicating with God. We will learn love of God, through prayer, partly through prayer, communicating with him. He'll teach us. And the prayer includes listening to God. So, it's why prayer and faith is so precious for the soul. We ought to wish to reach a high degree in this prayer. Love becomes the prayer. That is to say, to attain to this union full of love and simplicity, which results in an outpouring of the most pure divine light. Under the ordinary conditions of God's providence, God does not give himself to the soul with this plenitude until the evening of life, till we're older. When the soul has proved by its constant fidelity to the inspirations of grace, God's grace, that the soul belongs wholly to God, and in all things seeks but God alone. We ought to tend to this blessed state, to which many religious souls are most certainly called. And we are religious souls. We are called to this path, the holy narrow pathway. And like Dr. H was on his path of his life, of helping people with their souls, their minds, their hearts, their souls, in the spiritual. And he got off of it. But we are on this path, or we can be, the holy narrow pathway. And we ought to tend to this blessed state to which religious souls are called. Well, we are religious souls. All of us are. Every soul that God creates, he creates for himself and for good and for love of God, love of himself, to learn love of him so that we can learn love of others and ourselves, so that we can learn the mysteries of God's love, so that we can be empowered to, say, endure physical pain, not get drawn off by these scams that you spend lots of money. I was thinking back of all the different supplements that Dr. H was so excited about. And one time, too, he knew a man who had an office in his building complex there in this little town in Southern California. And the man had been very ill with something. He wasn't sure what it was, but it was made it so he couldn't work, lots of pain. And so the man, he was also a New Age practitioner, this other man was. Forget his name, maybe it was Charles or something. And one day he just started following his breath. He would use, I think that's maybe a Buddhist technique or something, different techniques. He got desperate. I know how that is. I was desperate. And he started just concentrating his mind on his breath, breathing in and out and in and out. And with his mind, he would follow his breath going out, coming in, going out. He did it for 3 full days. At the end of 3 days, he had a breakthrough. He felt no pain. Well, maybe something with his endorphins tweaked, or who knows what. Or his mind, his brain maybe hit a certain point of oxygenation or so much focus on his breath that he thought he was cured. He was all excited. He went back to work. Dr. H was all excited, calls me. You've got to do this. You've got to try this. Follow your breath. Just do that. Don't think of anything, because he's so loving. He wants to help people. He immediately thought of me. I've got to do this. It's not the first time he's had some gimmick that, he would believe in. And a new age thing that he was just so sure. And one of them was some woman who had developed a new technique, and she was selling it online then. It was being followed on YouTube and all of this technique, and everybody, you get your friends, and at a certain time, no matter what time zone they're in, and you had to have so many, I think like 12, you had to get a dozen, be a certain number of friends, that they would focus on the body part that was in pain. And they would focus for, I think it was 5 minutes, at the same time, all over the world even, your friends. And then people were having these incredible responses, he said. I said, that's prayer. They're praying. What? I said, yes, don't buy into this. Pray. It's prayer. I said, it's wonderful. You don't have to have 12. You don't have to have 3. You don't have to have 50. Have whoever wants to pray. And maybe it's nice that it's at the same time that everyone's focused on it. And the person himself probably thinks, gives them extra confidence. It was boosting them up to think, that everyone was focused to help get this pain go away or some body part to heal. And that itself is a very positive thing to do, but it's not a cure-all. It's not going to work every time. God chooses. God is the one who answers prayer. God has reasons for suffering. And I've known many of the reasons that God had me to suffer. One was he had to get me away from my ex-husband. He was not a good human being, and he was being cruel to me, and I was trying to live with that. And God loved me and didn't want me to be treated like that. God also knew the children need to be gotten away from this man. Even though now they think how great and wealthy and fun and normal and charming, conversational. Sure he is. That's how I got charmed to begin with. But he's still a socio-psychopath narcissist, You can't trust what he says or trust what he'll tell you he'll do. And it happened to my son, but it wasn't enough to cure my son. His dad reneged on him on giving him a swing loan. So he calls mom. I didn't realize he'd talked to his dad. His dad had reneged. And so my son was all grateful to me and thought I was wonderful. I couldn't do it now. I don't have the money. It was right after my mother had passed. Fortunately, I could do a swing loan for 3 months, and he paid back with interest. It's very nice. I didn't take all the interest, but my parents never did either for me. So it was their money. I did as they did. It was very loving of them. So, but see how we can get into these things, and Dr. H doesn't want anything to do with religion. He doesn't think religion works, see? And he doesn't call God God. He'd come up with some other name, which is fine. But it's an anti-motion of, because he was brought up Catholic. He doesn't like Catholicism. He doesn't believe in it. But he does in these New Age things without being overtly New Age. But it's all New Age the same. But this happened to be just simple prayer. Not just simple prayer, but they weren't praying to God to try to heal someone. They were, thinking that all of them together at a certain time for 5 minutes, focusing on this person. But it's the equivalent of prayer without calling it prayer. And that sort of blew it from, I said, no, I'm not going to get into that. I said, I've had so many people pray for me over the years. And I said, we've been told why I have earthly pain, and that I get too called out into the world, and God has other purpose for me. And I need to remind myself of this, even now. God has a reason why I'm suffering. And part of it's arachnoiditis. I'm so fortunate it hasn't been worse before this. So there's people far worse off sooner in their lives with arachnoiditis. That's why the neurosurgeon thought it was so incredible 2 years ago how well I was doing. Nearly 39 years with it then. Or not 39 with pain then, but I had about 3 years before I had the arachnoiditis, but I had constant pain, but not this level of pain. So he just gets into these gimmicks, and because he doesn't want to cave to God. And so this man, Charles, who thought he was healed, before long, I asked, well, how's he doing? Well, not so well, and he's not working anymore, and I haven't heard any more from him. He closed up his office, his New Age office, and didn't call it a New Age office, but he was doing New Age practicing. They call it by other names, because New Age has a bad name to it. They won't get business. They trick people by calling it something else. And just like, it's too bad Amazon sells the super patch, but there's all kinds of stuff on Amazon. There were things at Costco the other day I'd read about. My hair's been falling out. And it's probably neurological, but because I eat fairly well, I think, seem to eat healthy food, not a lot, but as much as I need. And you can't get overweight if you've got this kind of pain on your spine. You don't dare have weight pulling on your spine on top of everything else. So, but I don't think I could gain weight because the pain just eats it off and takes my appetite. So I asked this pharmacist, would this help my hair? She looked at me and she says, well, it's not going to hurt you, but she says, it's not going to help. I had another product came back. How about this? She just looked at me and sort of compassionate, shook her head no. I brought back these things. My daughter takes their packets, maybe AG4 or something. They're supposed to be plant-based and give energy and help with your body and health and all and vibrancy and be able to have more stamina. And she says to me, well, there's nothing in it that will hurt you. I got home and read some reviews, and they were, it was okay, but I don't think so. I'll ask my daughter again, but it's, you spend your money on this stuff with hopes, and yes, we want to do the best we can. And there are some products that do help, like these protein drinks. I can't possibly get enough protein by eating because I don't have enough appetite to be able to eat that much. But this protein drink helps. But it's, we just, I think it just comes back to understanding, getting to know God, listening to God, being close to God by loving Him. It starts with loving Him, learning to love Him. And then when He's so pleased that we want to love Him, as LS points out, He starts teaching us how to love Him beyond our human abilities to love. He teaches us spiritual love. So we start with our human love, and He knows then, and we stick with it. He knows we're serious, knows we mean it, knows we really, really want to love Him. And then when we can start knowing God and understanding God and communicating with God, He'll help us. He'll teach us more on, say, why we're suffering and how to cooperate with it and how to bring good out of it. I thought, my videos would be better if I would love God more and listen to him. He would guide me on what he wants me to talk about. And not, of course, I'm sorry, when I was in that kind of pain, it does something, it's humbling. So humility, maybe God wanted me to put out for you. Oh, this poor lady, all she can talk about is her pain. And that was about it. Pain can get consuming. But there's other parts of my brain that could move beyond that. My will and my intellect, the soul. The soul can go beyond the physical pain, the emotional pain, the psychological or the mental pain. So let's just keep on with love. And Dom Marmion is so right here. Happy state we're in the soul that is all for God finds the prelude to that eternal union of endless beatitude. So happy are we when our souls will become all for God. We will find the prelude, the opening to the, what I call the mystic portal, to eternal union, of endless beatitude, of divine union with God himself. A love of God that God brings us into his pure love. That's where we're headed on the narrow pathway. And the opening is love of God. That's where we start. And all of the outcomes and the activities that we might think of to do, like prayer, for example, contemplating God, reading about God, reading scripture, wanting to do good for other people, etc., etc. All that comes out of love. We don't do the activities hoping then that we will become loving. If we start with love of God and God teaches us his love, and he will, it will be conjoint. It will go beyond our human love. God will start reaching in with his pure love, teaching us beyond what we ever dreamed of love. Then that will lead us to union with God. And from there, all things are possible. That it will be God's possible. God always chooses. And God always has reasons. But if we can come to love God, then we will know him, we will understand, we will listen, and we will hear God say his reasons. Why this or that will all make sense. And that will relieve a lot of our anguish and frustrations of our temporal lives. And prepare us, because this often comes, it takes a lifetime. The narrow pathway is a lifetime of learning love. It's not going to happen quickly. It isn't 3 days of following our breath. Or even just my ecstasies. I didn't feel any pain during the ecstasy. That was something totally unexpected. Well, my guardian angel told me a couple of weeks before that it was taking me to the stairway to heaven. And that the Mass is the stairway to heaven. And the ecstasy and that union that I had during Mass and Mass alone. But when the ecstasy was over, the pain would be gangbusters plus, because of all the sitting I'd done, sort of like a dead person sitting there on the pew, and the pain was a lot worse because I hadn't moved, but I hadn't felt pain during that ecstasy. So this was temporary, but it was good still. But anyway. Eternity is is more. So let's keep on with the loving, learning to love God, and we'll see where this takes us on the narrow, holy pathway. God bless you all. I've got to get some trees moved and mow. Got to get some work done and see what's going on with little Mercy. She's been eating grass, and then they were both nibbling echinacea leaves. So I think that is trying to help her tummy somehow. Have a beautiful afternoon and night and day, whatever time period you're in. Much love to you all. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming. They're really stimulating and helpful. Get this turned off here. Oh, my phone.